did not exist when Father Feccia came on the scene in the early 1970s. In fact, there's always been trauma on this property. In the early 70s, they closed this as a seminary. It ran as a seminary from 1935 to about 1970. And then they reorganized and the seminarians went elsewhere. Father Feccia found this place empty, abandoned. This was the old chapel for the seminary. The library was a library, classrooms upstairs, etc. And they even lived upstairs.
And this was where Father was from. And this was his life. And like Dominic said, the culture, everything he put in here. Dominic and all of you, because all of you are his staff, that you continue to help the Italian community understand and continue to grow with our culture, our heritage, because it's gone. Every generation we lose a little bit more. I'm first generation here, so I'm probably more Italian than I am American because I still speak Italian. Well, let me rephrase that. I speak the Barese dialect at home, but we still do everything. My dad was alive. We still made the wine. We made this. We did all the canning. My kids, guys, Nono's gone. We still have the wine press. Well, Ma, can we just go to Caputo's and buy it? It's gone. So with all of you that are here today, you're continuing to spread the word of what we need our kids and our grandkids to follow. But my love, Father Feccia, that's our favorite picture of all of them, was a unique individual. He was ordained in 1962 on his parents' 50th wedding anniversary. And he celebrated his first Mass in prison. He wanted to be there. He felt that was important to him to celebrate the first Mass in prison. So he went there and they allowed him in. And then after that same year, they sent him to the States as a pastor, not a pastor, but the word to help the immigrants, because that's what the Scalabrinian order is all about. It's about the immigrants. And so he came here and he landed here, right, Dominic? Right after he came from, or did he?
I think he did a little bit of parish work before, and I think he went to Loyola for some courses for a while. I don't know if he ever got a degree.
He did get his degree. He finally did get.
Well, you know more than
Yeah, he finally did get his degree. But after that, he came to Stone Park, and like Dominic said, he saw it here. He saw the empty walls, the emptiness, and he wanted to fill it as the home of the Italian Cultural Center. So he, like Dominic says, was able to raise money, but he also had a lot of friends, like Mr. Robaldo, who did the painting that's behind you, and the painting that's upstairs in the Vatican. He also had a lot of friends with the artistic ability, some of the things that are in the art gallery, like Mr. Spapanato. That was a good friend of his, and all Father had to do was pick up a phone, and they came running. And because he had that quality, because he was sincere, there wasn't anything that, if he asked you to do something, he would be right next to you to do it. He just didn't dictate. He was there for you. Father, when I met him, this was all done. I've only been in Casa 15 years, but when I met him, I ended up being his sidekick for the pilgrimages that he went on. He said he needed a sidekick, was myself and Anna. He called us the Articolo Il. I was the short one, Anna was the tall one. So he figured he needed bodyguards, so he drafted the two of us. And we've had some wonderful, wonderful pilgrimages with him. He made them meaningful. You know, you could go to the Lady of the Millennium, when she traveled here, he made that here feel holy and blessed because he would do the rosary and he was passionate about it. When she finally found her home in St. John, when we went there, we did, of course, all the stations, and he would do, you know, Bill Curtis, who was the phenomenal narrator. Bill Curtis would finish, Father would do the whole thing in Italian. And with the same meaning and the same passion, and then we go to the next one. And then when we reached the Lady of the Millennium, it was phenomenal. He knew Carl Dema, the gentleman that was instrumental with the lady. He knew him personally. So he had stories. When we were there, he called Fran, his wife, Francine, and said, I would like for you to be here because it's very important that you're here. And Francine, just as I said, Father, all he had to do was pick up a phone, and Francine was there, and she talked about her husband and all the sacrifices they made because they lost 2 children. And there's a story, it's in the library, about the Lady of the Millennium. But she came, and Father was, as I said, you know, all he had to do was pick up a phone and did everything. And some of the pilgrimages that we went on, we went to Tennessee, we went to Graceland, but the reason we were there is he wanted to go see Sister Angelica. And at that time, Mother Angelica. And at the time she was in a coma, Anna? Was she in a coma?
I think she was.
And he got to him, and the 2 nuns got to go. And, you know, but it was meaningful to him. Of course, there's always an adventure with Father. We were in Memphis, and Anna had one group, I had another group, and we get a phone call. One of the poor nuns across the street got up, fell.
Oh, that's right.
She didn't even get on the airplane. We were by the Elvis's airplane. We were by the Lisa Marie. She stood up, she fell, and she dislocated her shoulder and everything. So Anna continued with the tour. Father, myself, and the nun went with the bus driver to the emergency room. Now, you know, going to the emergency room with a tour bus is kind of weird because they're thinking, oh my God, what's going on? And Father's there. He told them a story of what the nun was doing. And this poor nun, she's in so much pain. And he's going, oh yeah, she was climbing this thing and she decided to do a black flip. And I'm like, just get her into the ER, you know. But as I said, there's always a story with Father, but he made it enjoyable. You know, we do the rosary on the bus. Some people said, why? But it started our day the right way. It was the reason why we went on these pilgrimages. You come here, today Daryl and I are blessed. We sit in his office. And I have a painting, which I'll bring out, that is a story. Father, there was a young man in prison in Minnesota that got the Fra Noi, and there was the write-up about him. He started writing to Father. Father would write him back all the time. One day, he found out that this young man was going to be getting released, and he came to me and Daryl and said, I promised this young man I'd go see him before we got released. He says, will you take us? Will you take me? Okay, he called the board. He says, I need Nancy and Daryl off for the day. I want to go to Minnesota. I want to go see this guy. The board said, okay, fine. You have somebody cover the phones, whatever you guys want to do. We got up there. We drove up there. Again, Father's personality. We got in there. It was a white collar. I mean, all of us were able to walk in. We didn't have to check. We didn't have to turn in anything. We get there, and Father says, okay, give me 10 minutes and we'll go home. What do you mean 10 minutes? We just drove 5 hours. What do you mean 10 minutes? So Daryl and I went to Walmart, and we let him stay for an hour. And we came back, and this young man, while he was in prison, he drew a picture of the Blessed Mother and baby Jesus. And when he was released, he came here, and he brought Father the picture. So Father always had it hanging in his office, and I used to sit in the archive room. So he would have it over his head, and he'd say, someday that picture will be yours. So I says, okay, fine. Then I got moved to the building that doesn't exist anymore, so he brought over the picture there. I says, okay. And then, unfortunately, he got sick,
And we brought it to Villa Scalabrini, and he said, no. He says, they're gonna remove it and it's gonna get lost. You take it. So I headed home. And then when Daryl and I moved here, it's back home. It's back on the wall, and I know Father's arms are constantly surrounding me. But I'm sure all of you have stories of Father. Father was a man that could talk to you, made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Helped, we went through a rough patch at home, and he was there. And every day he'd come, he'd walk by, and, are you okay? Yeah, we're fine. And then, he had his temperament. Anybody that knew Father Feccia knew that if he was upset, you knew he was upset. One day something happened, and he says, I'm going for a walk. Where are you going? He walked to Mount Carmel. Something happened here. He walked to Mount Carmel. Then he calls. He says, will you come and pick me up? No, you walk. You can walk back. But, but that was who he is. Again, when we were in Canada, we were having dinner, and the waitstaff was a little too slow for him, and he decided to get up and leave.
Oh.
Yes. And we're like, okay, and where are you going? He goes, I'm going back to the hotel. It's far. He says, I'm going back to the hotel. He would not answer my call. We had all these people that called him. He wouldn't answer any of our calls. Finally, we found somebody with a different cell number because he figures, well, maybe if he sees Nancy's number, this number, he doesn't answer. Nothing, So we called the hotel. He says, that little short man that walked in with us? Yeah. Oh yeah, he came in with a bag of McDonald's. But yeah, he was a character, but when he said, I'm upset, he was, but when he was, as I said, when we were in Canada, we were checking in, we always got to do all of the fun stuff with him. So we were checking in on everybody and getting all their room numbers, and of course, he was the last one to check in. Father never traveled with his collar. Father felt that he did not deserve special treatment, nor did he want special treatment. So when you saw him on the plane, if you saw him on the bus, he never wore his collar. So we get there, and there's this young girl, she just checked in 50 crazy Italian people with focaccia, tarale, and this and that, and just bags of groceries, like you thought we were going away for 6 months. But so he comes in and he goes, Augusto Feccia, okay, and the girl's typing in, and the same line she used for everybody, are you traveling alone? He goes, yes. And then there comes Father. He says, I left my wife at home this month. Okay, and then she's still typing. And he goes, yeah, but last week I left the kids at home. Like, okay, and all of a sudden, I guess on the screen it came up, Reverend August Feccia, and this poor girl, her face. And I'm like, why do you do this? I says, I know what you're talking about. This poor girl, you're freaking her out. He goes, it's okay. Well, his wife was the Blessed Mother, and his children were the parishioners. So that was his life. But I said, yeah, but this poor kid, she doesn't understand. She'll get over it. She'll be fine. And then, as Anna knows, he did some other crazy stunts as we traveled on the bus, and and it was ironic. Last night, Frank did a beautiful presentation on AP Giannini with the Bank of America. Well, Father used to bank with Bank of America, and one time we had an opportunity. We'll call it that. We spent 40 minutes on the bus with the Bank of America, and I don't think. The steam like on the cartoons, yeah. And he's on the back, and he's going, Nancy, if they don't correct this now, he says, I'm telling you, I'm changing banks. You can't change the bank in the middle of a bus trip. I'm changing banks, Nancy. Okay, Father, whatever you want to do. But again, when Father, and I keep pointing to Anna because she was my cohort, we got the opportunity to go to Windsor. Father's had two loves. Us, the Italian Cultural Center in Stone Park, and Windsor. Even though he was at many other places, he was at the Villa Scalabrini in Los Angeles, which is the home of the retirement center. He was a director there for 10 years, but his love was Windsor. And if you couldn't find him here, he would say, I'm going away with the car. And you knew he was heading to Canada.
because that was his home. St. Angela's, they treated him like gold. I mean, not like our population. I think what happened is when he was here in the beginning, there was a very big Italian population, like Dominic, you know, he did all the programmings, Josette Weber, Steve Fiorentino. There was a big community. When he left and he went to Windsor, that area was all Italian. So he was home again. But when he came back the second time, I think he was disappointed because the Italian community had dispersed and it wasn't the same. But he got a lot of people to come back. But we got an opportunity to go to Windsor to celebrate his 50th, his golden. And that's where our favorite picture is, because that's when they celebrated in Windsor. And they gave him this phenomenal surprise party there. And then when we came back, we did something for him. And I do have some medallions that he blessed. So I'd like to give everybody one. When we did our little party, he celebrated the Mass underneath the Calvary. We had pictures on the bridges, but I don't know. I mean, Dominic asked me to speak about Father. We can go on all day long, but he was a good person. I mean, besides being a great priest, he was a good man. He understood life. You know, yes, you listen to his homily. It wasn't just, he did the scripture, but he related to what the day-to-day environment, even though they say, you know, the priests are not married, they don't have children, but somehow he was able to connect with each one of us in a different way, you know. The sick, you know, somebody had said, you called him, he was there. I know my uncle was dying, we needed the last rites in Gottlieb, and I called him and he was here. I don't even think I hung up the phone. All of a sudden I saw him walking in the room. And he was there. He was there for the people. He was there for all of us. He was there for the community. He was there. When we had summer camp, he would be sitting outside playing the parachute thing with the kids, or, you know, and the kids loved him because he was their height. He wasn't intimidating, you know, and the little ones just loved him. They flocked to him, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, there are stories, but we were blessed. I was blessed to have him in my life, and tomorrow is his birthday. We're celebrating this weekend because tomorrow is his birthday, and I think later on we'll go to the cemetery and pay our respects to him. But I don't know, we loved him dearly. I appreciate Dominic asking me to talk, and thank you for your time today. I'm sorry, like Dominic said about him being able to raise money. Father Feccia raised a good portion of money. Father Feccia has started a foundation, the Father Feccia Foundation. It is there to help. Father never said no to anybody who needed help. So there is a foundation. If you know somebody that is in need, please see me. We do have his applications. There is a committee. I am not on the committee, but there is a committee that reviews these applications. And we continue his legacy. Father has given, now that he's gone, but he has given out a lot of money, and we continue, as I say we, because I'm in the backdrop of all of this, but we continue to help. This was his mission. He raised the money in Canada, and then when he brought it here, the foundation is still here. I know with the Scalabrinians, there were some issues with the money and this and that, but that money did not belong to the Scalabrinians. It belonged to the money he fundraised for a particular cause to help the people that need it the most. So again, if you know of anybody that's in need, please see me. I have applications. We will forward it on to the committee, and we will continue this legacy to help those who need the most. So again, thank you.
Excellent. Our next speaker is Terry Quilico. Terry is volunteer here at the Casa Italia Library. He's also frequently seen in the Fra Noi with articles about all sorts of different things. And he's in the process of creating a book on Mother Cabrini, and we're anxiously awaiting for its premiere, its publication, which is when?
Well, I'm going to the shrine on next Tuesday, and I think that'll be my last source. So then it'll be turned over to Paul for the final edit. So I think within a couple of months.
Okay. Well, Terry has a nice little presentation on Father Feccia.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Nancy. You know, when I was driving here, I thought Casa Italia, the Italian Cultural Center, has two pillars. Dominic is the brain, Father Feccia is the soul, but now I have to say that Nancy is the heart. These people make this place what it is. And I thought this room would be overflowing today because of Father Feccia. But you know what? His spirit fills this place, fills it. So we have a full house here today. Now, I was not here in the 70s when Father Feccia was at his prime. I'm going to tell you a couple of, this is actually from the introduction of the Cabrini book, which involves Father Feccia, of course. It was on June 29th, 2013. Storm clouds were gathering and a cold wind was whipping in from Lake Michigan, and I and hundreds more waited to board the Bright Star for a pilgrimage onto the lake. They did not allow anyone to board the boat until 15 minutes before leaving the dock. And in Noah's Ark fashion, only 2 by 2 would be allowed to cross the gangway. So we huddled in the cold, dank air on the pier. I was among the crowd as a journalist for Fra Noi, the Chicago Italian-American magazine, at the behest of my editor, Paul Basili. We were in the midst of a 2-year journey, writing and photographing the lives and traditions of Chicago area Catholic religious festivals for a coffee-sized table book entitled E Viva la Festa, a spiritual journey from Italy to Chicago. Boarding the ship were members and supporters of the Associazione Regionali Pugliesi in America. But this celebration of San Nicola, the patron saint of the association, would not take place on the storm-tossed lake. Instead, the captain announced that the weather conditions would require him to steer the craft away from Navy Pier onto the safer waters of the 3 branches of the Chicago River. So we, and a 6-foot statue of the saint, were on the murky waters of the river, surrounded by skyscrapers as we navigated under the many bridges that crisscrossed the river. Our celebrant was the founder of Casa Italia, Scalabrinian priest, Father Augusto Feccia, who would be awarded the St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Award on November 11th, 2015. As the Mass proceeded, vehicles kept crossing the steel and iron bridges above us, drowning out his words. The service was in both Italian and English, and in his homily, he said something that was central to both him and San Nicola. Out of the many legends, one thing is for certain, that he favored the poor. What is important is he was a man of great, great faith. As I write this, the staff and volunteers of Casa Italia, the Scalabrinians, and hundreds of the friends of Father Augusto Feccia are awaiting his Mass of Resurrection, which will be held at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Melrose Park on January 25th, 2025. Father Feccia founded Casa Italia and helped found the Scalabrinian Charities for the Poor Foundation. Like Mother Cabrini, he came from a large family in northern Italy, Piacenza, being the last of 12 children. I hope that his spirit will be honored in the pages of this book. Father Feccia is in front of St. Charles Borromeo statue at Our Lady of the Angel Cemetery on York Road, just south of Roosevelt Road. And beneath the statue of St. Charles Borromeo, who was Bishop Scalabrini's inspiration, are all the flat markers for all the Scalabrinians, and many of them who served in the Chicago area. And Father Feccia's monument is the newest one there. It's right off the entrance on York Road. If you haven't been there, you should see it. It's a remarkable cemetery. Also, the victims of Our Lady of Angels Fire are there in the same cemetery. This is not Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which is across the street. That's where the bishops are, along with Al Capone. I'll let you make your own judgments about that. But a couple of years later, after I began volunteering here at Casa Italia, and when I walked in, one of the first people I saw was Father Feccia. He took me in his office, and in his office there was a map of Italy. It had pins sticking into the map. He said, "So, tell me, where are your grandparents, or where are your parents from?" I said, "Well, my grandparents were from Piemonte, about 30 miles outside of Torino." He said, "Oh, Piemontesi." Took a pen and put it in the map. So from then forward, whenever he'd see me, he said, "Oh, here comes the Polenta." And he became my confessor. And there's nobody like him to go to confession to, believe me. It was a pleasure, an absolute joy. And he always made you feel welcome. When you would speak to him, he gave you his full attention. He was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And, I was privileged to know him and meet him, and I count him a blessing. And every day I walk through the store, I think of him. In my mirror in my bathroom, I have his holy card, I have the Pope's card, and I have Brother DeBold from Christian Brothers from St. Patrick High School. Those are the three guys I look at every morning. So, thank you very much.
Terry, did you tell him that he was the same height as San Nicola and that boat?
No, San Nicola is much taller than
Yeah, we were on the boat with Terry, and we had done that.
But yeah, that was quite a journey. And he was getting so frustrated because he would stop, cars would go by, then he'd start again and everything. But he didn't lose his temper. He kept his cool. But that was a remarkable day.
Yeah, normally if he was speaking and the crowd was talking, he'd just say, "Well, I'll stop. When you're done talking, I'll continue my speech. So go ahead, finish your conversation." But that night on the thing, he's like,
He couldn't stop the cars from
he couldn't
going.
stop the cars, and he goes, some night tonight, but yeah, he was. We had done that a number of years, and he was just a real treasure to be on that boat with him. He really was.
At this point, I'll break in with some academic stuff, and I'll not prolong it, but I want you to appreciate the way that we can save our past, save our stories, and learn more about people like Father Feccia, and actually it's a tribute to Fra Noi. Martin and I last Wednesday went through the Fra Noi from this is the 1972 to 1980. There's another volume, and then we have all the Fra Nois that were ever published from 1960 to the present. And So in the old days, Fra Noi used to look like this. I won't pick it up because it's too heavy. It reported all the details about the clubs and organizations, what they were doing, who got elected to the president of what club, and what Italians were running in the next election, and this and that. It was very much focused on the Italian community. It was invented by Father Piedini as a newsletter for Villa Scalabrini and as a fundraiser, and 90% of the pictures are of him receiving a check from somebody who's getting publicity now because they gave a check. So God bless that whole situation. Anyhow, in the process, they preserved the story of our community in large part, and they preserved a lot of the things that Father Feccia did. We took pictures of the articles, and I'm going to show you a bunch of them. You can study, you can come around the library and study them if you want, but I just want to give you an idea of what things looked like. There were a lot of people to welcome and support Father Feccia in the early days. There was this organization called ACIM, American Committee on Italian Migration, and that committee, working with the Scalabrinians, and there were plenty of Scalabrinians in the Chicago area in 1970. There were a dozen parishes. There was what was left of the seminary spirit, and when Father Feccia began, these are the pictures of the folks who pledged the spotlight. This is a spotlight, the leaders of the Italian Center, and this is the December 1970 period. So he started off with some considerable support, and that was a good thing. Some of the early kinds of things that he did, the publicity that he got, was Canto Napoli came through town, and they gave a check to the Italian Center. So he didn't get as many checks as Father Feccia did, but he got his share of financial support for the various groups. And some of these groups are out there. And when it came to pecking order in the among the Scalabrinians and the priests in Chicago, Father Feccia was on the end there. You see, he's on the far left, and there's the identifications there. Others.
Father
That
DiChiara,
doesn't include.
Father Cosi, Father Agostino, who was here.
Yeah, brings by some of the old leaders, but I thought Father Feccia's name was in that identification.
It is. Right here.
It is.
And Father Feccia was always bald. Have you noticed his pictures? He's got the brown hair there, but Father Feccia, I think, was born bald. Right here. Robert, Father
Okay.
Feccia.
So that was sort of in 1974, a picture. And this comes from about 74. Dr. Alvaro Beltrami, he had an alliance with the doctors of the city early on, and the center used to, let me point out, it wasn't Casa Italia then, it was the Italian Cultural Center that was in this building, and even though the Scalabrinians owned the other buildings on the campus here, the center did not use those buildings. And here's Frank Chesro, a county commissioner, a very wealthy man who was a patron of the arts, was a friend of Father Feccia's, and was usually there during those especially during those early years when there was an art opening, and he is the donor of one of the larger paintings in the art gallery that deals with Porta Portese. He was a patron of it. This, I think, nothing ever came of it, but Cesaro had a lot of great relations with the Vatican. He was a buddy of every pope that came along, and he got this, I think it was more for show than anything else, but he got the center designated as nothing much came of this, but symbolically it's important. And Dr. Del Chica, if you go upstairs into the art gallery, you'll see some sculptures of Dr. Del Chica and his wife. Del Chica was a doctor in the 24th and Oakley neighborhood, and also a distinguished practitioner in a variety of fields. And he and his wife donated a good deal of money. In fact, when his wife died in 2006, she gave $10,000 from her estate. Anyhow, he got support from people like that. Don't pay any attention to the picture here, but the center bicentennial, the bicentennial was a big thing for the center, and there was a good deal of money floating around, as there is some money for the 250th anniversary. But Father Feccia got access to those funds, and they did a lot of different things, including traveling to Iowa, I think 2 or 3 years in a row with art exhibits and that sort of thing. And the center was very much oriented toward artists. We don't have any artists coming around anymore. I can't attract any artists. He did a fantastic job. He thought the way to battle the negative image of Italians as criminals was to show them the art of Italy. And if you've ever been, all been in the art gallery, and you know how exquisite that room is, and how fantastic an image it creates, and a mood that it creates of respect and appreciation for beauty. So there were a lot of art exhibits, and one of the art exhibits featured Benvenuti. And if you go through the art, you'll see these opera stars, portraits of the female opera stars usually. And Benvenuti was here for several weeks in the mid-70s and attracted an awful lot of attention. And here's that's Benvenuti himself there. Ricardo is his name. I can't pin the exact date down. Do I have? No. But here we have some support from the Joint Civic Committee. They did in the mid-70s, 75. They did a St. Joseph's Day and handed Father Feccia a check. And here's the second national art exhibit. Father Feccia solicited artists from all over the country, had them send him pictures of their art, and he decided whether or not they should be in the art show. Of course, he had a committee of, probably there were a dozen major Italian-American artists who were frequent visitors to the Italian Cultural Center, participants in all of the activities. And they, he would ask them to crate their pictures up and send them to him. I don't know where he got the money to do all that. I don't know, but he was a good fundraiser always. And so they would give prizes, and they had really elaborate stuff. And sometimes he would buy the paintings, and that's how we got our art collection, because he was in touch with a network of 50 to 100 artists all around the U.S. who were of Italian origin. And and they would go May 1st to June 26th. That's a 2-month period. This is one of the don't pay attention to the Mutt and Jeff family that went 60 years there. Pay attention to that artwork. That's an example of one of the artworks. And for 2 months straight in 1977, they featured the artwork, and it was stuff like this that came through, flags. I don't know if we still have that flag. And he was also working with the children. That's a picture of the children who were taking Italian language classes, and he had a deal with the Italian government that gave them certificates of having studied the Italian language, and that's a nice group there. And they also had general courses for Italians who had just come. Italians were still coming to America, to Chicago at that time, and he had GED courses. And he also had for them to get a high school, an American high school degree, or lessons in music and art. The Italian Cultural Center was very much oriented toward art at the beginning. They weren't and the art books that we have in our library were purchased at that time. And again, I don't know where he got the money, but those books were really expensive. And here's there was the Italian Cultural Center Choir. Josephine Lipuma and Leonora Lipuma, her daughter, were very active in the chorus. It had that many people. They would appear at various events. Columbus Day, they came out to Chicago Heights a couple of years for festivals there, and they appeared very frequently. The Italian Cultural Center singers and dancers, they made cassette recordings. We've got plenty of them, and they represented the Italian Cultural Center. There was that group that went to Iowa, the Iowa State Fair, and stayed for a week or something like that, along with Italian art. Here's Father Feccia, the librarian. He's pictured here. I don't know what he's got there, but it looks like some kind of textile. Maybe it's a t-shirt, I'm not sure. But details all the material. They had 3,000 volumes in those days. We have 10,000 volumes. So we outdid Father Feccia, who we built on his base. And so you can read all these things. There's Florence Roselli. She was administrator of the Villa Park Library, but she donated her time every Wednesday. She's the one who invented Wednesdays for the Italian Cultural Center, Casa Italia volunteers. And there's more information there. Or borrow books. They let people borrow books. It was limited later, but we're back to lending books. Art was in the air. Even Father Cozy, Laura, you people are so young. Father Cozy was a young guy who succeeded Father Pialini at the Villa Scalabrini and at the Fra Noi. And he even wrote one of his articles on Calapai, the artist. And if you look at that painting, it's not really a painting, but it says it in there, what it is. Anyhow, Latilio Calapai was a part of the Italian Cultural Center then, and he is still today. We've got his work hanging there, and it's a representative of affiliation or sympathy with the working class as we go along. And here's John Cadel. You've heard people talk about the Cadel Gallery. Well, this is a picture of John Cadel. I think it's a pose, and he's pretending to be painting the migrants, which is the major work in the exhibit. And this article went on to talk about Cadel, his final years. He contracted cancer. They opened the gallery, and he went back to Italy and died there a couple of years later. And here's something from the news, the Tribune. That's Italian. This Tomasello guy writing the letter to the editor in 1978, recommending the Italian Cultural Center and Father Feccia as a place to find out all about the wonderful things that Italians do. And Antonesca Nardi was feted by the Italian Cultural Center in 1978. And the Italian Cultural Center traditionally had its dinner dance in February. Why in February? Well, that's when the Mardi Gras time came. It was a Mardi Gras celebration. And it got inconvenient as Italians got more prosperous, and it interrupted people's Florida vacations as time went on. So we started moving it around from February to various times that would accumulate. And then we have a number of people who were, I can see all of these people in my mind, but you don't know who the hell they are, so I'm not going to go into them. And then his, the final thing with Cadel was that he had a lot of leftover stuff, and they had sort of a fire sale on them, and the proceeds went to the center, but then a lot of it was left over, and we still have a lot of Cadel stuff. And again, a national art exhibit that's showing the folks there. And here's the Consul General, the first, he's the guy in the middle with his arms. I think that's it. Well, maybe that's somebody else. Oh, Teodoro Fuchsa is his name. He's next to Father Feccia in this picture. So they're able to get the Consul General here for their art openings with some ease. Feccia was excellent at that, and these are some of the other people. You probably know of that sculpture, the Return of the Profligate Son. We have it in the exhibit upstairs. And there's something about Leonora Lipuma. Anybody remember Leonora Lipuma? Okay, well, she was the heart and soul of the Italian Cultural Center from about the mid-70s to the 2010s or 2000s. And she was made the Woman of the Year. And here's the death of Dr. Del Kika. I haven't been able to pin that date down, but we'll get that soon. And here is the news. Father Feccia was sent to Edmonton in Canada, Calgary. He was transferred after a great 10 years of success at the Italian Cultural Center. There was a little bit of controversy. Maybe he was too successful. Maybe
he was too well liked.
Too well liked. And it looked like the Italian Cultural Center might be taking away some of the focus from the Villa Scalabrini, which is where the leadership of the Scalabrini order had their big interest, and where the Joint Civic Committee was pushing its. So it was a big blow. We thought he was being banished to Calgary, Canada. Who? Well, it was a big blow. But the Loretana group had a great big going away party for him, and Joe Camarda and the group supported him in a big party that they had. And this is more information about what happened, what came later, and that is Father Roberto Simeonato, who was a very good guy too, and he turned the focus of the work of the center more on the religious, and that was one of the criticisms of Father Feccia. He was too much into art and culture as the director of the Italian Cultural Center, and not enough into the sacramental services to the Italian community. And here are some other, this is other publicity later on that highlighted the new initiatives of the Italian Cultural Center. And here's Simeonato Sparkles as new director, and a very, very positive publicity. In fact, Father Simeonato invited me and John Bucci to bring the Italians in Chicago exhibit to the room upstairs. And so he played a key role in the history of the Italian Cultural Center, and he worked with the Calabrese community to get them started with their big festival as well. So he was a creditable guy, and it helped the hurt. The Italian Cultural Center kept vibrant after Feccia left. But he came back. He came back in what, 2010 approximately. He wasn't happy about that, and he pouted quite a bit and wouldn't do things. But we tried to draw him out, and then he got involved with the radio, and unfortunately, it was the technology of the time was very expensive. Today, he could have done a 24-hour-a-day FaceTime broadcast for paying nothing, but he was paying big money with the radio.
When he did Radio Maria, here's a sample of the radio that Mary Lou brought, and he would do people that would donate it. He would say endowment of Radio Maria and the poor, and he would do a plaque and he would do a big presentation. But Father was paying about $5,000 a month for the airwaves to John Hancock. And like he said, today our little cell phones could have done exactly what he did, but that's why the radio, you know, he would sell the radios, he would do fundraisers, we'd do dinner dances to try to support the radio station.
I have a video of him at John Bucci's 80th birthday, but I won't play that now. Let's go around the room and have some contributions from you. Now you're later in his career. Anybody have anything about Father Feccia's early career? Nobody's nearly as old as I am. Raphael, do you remember the 1970s?
Vaguely. I remember bringing my classes twice at exhibits upstairs. to let them know that we have this great cultural center for the students.
The art exhibits.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Anybody else have any 1970s recollection? You're much too young, all of you. Okay. Well, now let's move ahead to the, well, to the period, his second reign at the Italian Cultural Center, from about the early 2010s to 24.
So for me, I was honored and blessed to have known Father. To me, I say he was like, I was just jotting down some stuff, but like Pope Francis, a very simple man. He didn't want a lot of elaborate things. He didn't want a lot of attention to himself. I say he probably wore little shoes, but those shoes were hard to fill after his passing. I worked at Villa Scalabrini, and I was his social worker, and speaking Italian with him, he'd love it, but he had a funny disposition. I'd say, Father, how are you? All in Italian. And, you know, how old are you? He said, I'm 19. I said, I think the number's not right. And he'd laugh, and he would, you know, talk to different people in the room. So a very kind-hearted man. You know, for me too, when we had the open house, it was an honor when we got him here, when we had the open house a few years ago. And again, you know, you're saying, oh God, you know, bless you, because this is all started from me. He goes, no, it's everybody that's following. So he was always a man, not being glorified, but he wanted to know that everybody was part of what is going on here. And like I said, it was just, you know, sad because you started to see the decline of a wonderful man, but he kept his going. I think even when you had his little birthday party, it was funny.
At the nursing
Yeah.
home, yeah.
So, like I say, I was honored with that. I think he was at Loyola in Rome for 1 year, because he was like a director out there. That's what I thought.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, some of you might wonder about the deer. Is it the deer with the reindeer with the lights? Was it 5 years, 10 years ago? I don't know. It's all running together.
2017.
2017?
Christmas. It was Christmas of 2017. We brought it out like a candelabra, and it was our Christmas party, and we had to light up the candles and the deer. That's all I remember. It was special to him, but I'm not sure why. But anyway, he had to light it up for our banquet, and there's a picture of him lighting it up for our celebration.
Yeah, well, he had an eye for beautiful things,
Yeah.
and you have to admit that deer is very beautiful in its design, and the lights on top, that's why it's here today.
But it initiated our banquet, our Christmas celebration.
Yeah.
So
we'll bring it out.
Yes.
Any other comments?
So the plaque there is, like Nancy was saying, or someone mentioned that if you donated, it's kind of heavy, Dominic.
I got it.
That if you donated, you got a medallion and then the plaque. So Angelo's mom was in her like 80s, and he would come visit her at the house up until he couldn't go out to visit even at the home. He would do that, and you see a picture of him in the corner speaking on the radio. That was that little room when you come in the door, right, Hans?
Yeah.
And Radio Maria, he would do religious, the Saint of the Day, or the Rosary, both, I would say.
Both.
And his mom lived to 100 and a half, and that's a picture of Father and her, and he was just always smiles.
I looked all around for some recording of Radio Maria, but all I could find was the canned material that came out of Rome. I couldn't find him live on radio recorded, but we'll keep looking for that. Yes?
One of the memories that I have of Father Feccia is that he would come to us, St. Francis Borgia, and say the monthly mass, Padre Pio, and I was singing the chorus, And so for like 3-4 years, he can say mass there in Italian, because it's kind of rare to have mass in Italian anywhere.
Yeah.
So he would come to San Francisco Borgia and say the mass in Italian and question the audience if they understood some passages in the Bible, and I would always answer the questions.
And gave his support to the Father, Padre Pio movement. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other comments, questions?
About 20 years ago, I don't know if anybody remembers or came, there was a group of lavandare, how they were washing
Close?
clothes, yes.
In the past.
He was here, they came here.
This is in the 2010s?
About 20 years ago, maybe less or more. So.
Oh, okay, I remember something
You
about that.
remember?
Yeah, so he was in charge of a lot of big special events that were cultural. The Joint Civic Committee and the Villa Scalabrini had these kind of social events that were fundraising efforts, but he always had culture as the main thing. And Anna, do you have something?
Yes, I remember one year a father took us to Holy Hill with a bus trip. And all of a sudden, while we were walking to where we were going, and all of a sudden we're looking for Father and we couldn't find him. And then when we did meet with him, he goes to us, he was standing up, I can't forget this. Ragazzi, dove siete andati? Come mai ancora? And he was up on the hill. We were all like, out of breath from walking. And this man, he was in his 70s, close to 80. And he was up on the hill with all this energy. Ragazzi, ma dove siete? Ma come mai ancora non siete arrivati? He was just making jokes.
It's a miracle, miracle.
This was Father Feccia. He always found something to make us laugh. I
I
remember.
got a lot of jokes. I remember a lot of jokes.
I remember when he was doing masses. I used to go here at Casa Italia on Sundays, and I remember how he connected with people. And he, you know how sometimes during the mass you kind of start daydreaming. Well, to get everybody's attention, he would stop whatever he was saying. He would crack a joke. He would just grab everybody's attention, and then we were focused on what he was saying. He was really good about that. I was blessed to do the radio transmissions with him. When he was doing the Radio Maria transmissions upstairs, and we were selling the radios to the older community that were shut-ins, basically, and they enjoyed listening to Father. And he used to transmit the religious end of it. Also, we spoke about things that went on at Patronato Acli to attract and inform the Italian elderly community of what we were doing at Patronato Acli, which was very important. And he was very dedicated to keeping that radio transmissions going, even though it got to be difficult and very expensive at the end. But I did enjoy working with him when we were doing those transmissions.
We have a video of Father Feccia at John Bucci's 80th birthday party. He and John collaborated, or worked themselves to death, putting together the art gallery on the second floor here. And we had a 80th birthday party for Bucci. I think it was in 2014. And at that time, Father Feccia said a few words about the experience.
And as you see various pictures of Father, you will always see him with his finger like this. And that was his signature. And he would always point to, like, if he was reading, he was always pointing to the scripture. He would always do that. and then he would go on and elaborate. But this was his signature pose, always, no matter what he did, he always did that.
Here he is in person.
By John, all of a sudden turned to be 80 years old. He kept on saying that he was 39. What happened?
I felt 39. You just come and
Oh. Well, listen. I've known John only for about, let me see, 10, 20, 30, 40. Quite a while. I only have one very simple thing to say. That the center would not be here if it was not for John. I take credit for being the troublemaker that I accepted. Because
you
I
was an initiative maker, not a troublemaker. You give incentive to do it.
that's polite.
That's why
Anyway, let me say very simply that a lot of work with the mind and the hands, it was done by this man, really. And unfortunately, I still have to get rich before I would have been able to pay all the many hours. The only problem is that he was working for 14, 15 hours, and I was that tired in the evening. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight, he was kept on going and going.
And you got tired in the evening, we left, and you still watched the stairs.
Now, is that your wife?
Anyway,
I'm afraid to say something. You know what? I did not pay a penny to this man. And most of the time, they start money from his pocket. You do not know that, but I know. You seem not to know, but you have done wonder for the center, for the Italian community, and the Scalabrini fathers want to just say simply thank you. It's a very simple word, but it is really, truly, you're a Scalabrinian more than many of us. And I just want to show my little appreciation, a very simple thing that I brought back from Italy when
yeah,
but you never stop working.
we work to accomplish things. You know,
Wonderful man. Wonderful man. Thank you very much.
We have the Sons of Italy represented here tonight, Jonathan, and they have something. Why, Dominic, are you interrupting? You could have talked some more. Well, you see something of his spirit and his generosity and giving all the credit to Bucci. And Bucci certainly deserved a lot of credit, but he tried to take the spotlight off of himself and highlight the people who contributed to the center. And that still is the case. Without the work of volunteers like Bucci, etc., you can't move forward. He's alive. We haven't seen him on the screen. He's there just as brilliant and lively and generous as he was when he walked the earth. Anyhow, anything else? Frank, say something. How would this impact you? Seeing this stuff about the Father Feccia.
I mean, I did not really know him, I'm not gonna lie, but I respect incredibly what he did. Because like you say, we probably wouldn't be here without him, so he deserves all this and much more.
I got to see both his cultural and his spiritual side. I attended many of his masses in Italian, and I was with him on many of the pilgrimages led by Anna and Nancy. and I think he gave the best homilies I've ever experienced. He would quote directly from the scripture and tie that into the homily, so you saw the connection. And then I got to see his cultural and his love of the arts too, because one of my first projects here at the Italian Cultural Center, and this was something that was important to him, was that he saw value in all of the artwork that we have here, a large collection, and he asked me to catalog his work digitally. So so I got to see all of it, and that was really special.
Okay. Nancy, you want to close it with the last comment?
I just feel that we've all been blessed. He's touched all of our lives. He's touched yours, especially through all the years. And because of that, you have continued his legacy here. And generations ago, Dominic was talking about Leonora Lupuma and Josephine. We have a vocal scholarship here at Casa because of Josephine. But we have generations here. We had Josephine Lupuma, then Leonora, and now today part of the library staff is Olivia Greco, and who is a very young girl who's now joining your team, our team, your team, who is the great-granddaughter of Josephine and the granddaughter of Leonora. So we are continuing that legacy. What he started, what Dominic is continuing with all of you that are continuing. I think it was a wonderful tribute, Dominic, especially this weekend that is very meaningful. It was just good. It was good to hear his voice.
Yeah.
It was good to hear his sense of humor, as you call it. But thank you, Dom. Thank you for putting this together. And thank you for reminding that there are really good people in this world, and that they touch our lives and they're very meaningful. So thank you.
Thank you.